Hello everyone, welcome to this first Collaborate session. First thing I'll try and do is see if everybody can hear me. One way to do that is to raise your hand. So if you see down the bottom of the screen, there's a picture of a microphone, a video and a little raised hand. So click on the raised hand and that will let me know that you can hear me okay. So keep it there, so basically I can see if anyone can't hear me then. There's still a few people, looks like, can't hear me. Super faint. Okay, that's sorted. Okay, a bunch of people haven't raised their hand. I don't know. I'll just put a text message as well. Okay, maybe put your hand down now, everybody, and then I'll ask it the other way. Okay, it appears most people can hear me at any rate. Yeah, if you can't, then maybe try logging in again. There's some processes you can go through to check, but I'm not sure what they are. Yeah, anyway, probably too technical for me to figure out. If you're not able to hear me, you probably have to raise an issue with the IT help desk. Okay, let me explain a little bit about these Collaborate sessions. Before I do that, again, and just check any hands raised. No. How many people are doing this as their first subject? Okay, quite a lot. Okay, that's good. My intention for this session is to probably not going to be too long, just to give a bit of an overview of the subject and of the assessment. And then the actual week one content will be covered by Mostafa and Zelani tomorrow and Thursday. I'm going to be the tutor that's in charge of the assessment. So basically, I'm really the only person you can ask questions about the assessment. The others won't answer those. So we're doing that so that we're kind of consistent in the advice that we give people. Right, now the way I usually run these things, or the way we've done it in the past, is that usually I talk a bit and people tend to ask questions, usually by typing the questions in. That gets around all the feedback problems and things like that. So usually it's probably just me that needs to have the microphone on. But if you need to get my attention or something and you can't, then you can always turn the microphone on or to explain. But that's generally the way we've worked in the past. It just seemed to work fairly well that way. Okay, so I've started earlier. I've started recording this session, so we'll always record it. We had a couple of problems last year when the recordings got out of sync. I'm hoping that doesn't happen this year because we never uncovered why it happened, but hoping it doesn't happen this time. But anyway, what I've prepared is just a couple of quick slides, not much, and then you can ask questions along the way about the assessment items or anything you like about the course at this stage. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Michael Pickering just commented that yeah, the more complex questions, it's sometimes better to go to audio. And yeah, that's probably right. But most of the questions, it's easier to do them just by typing them in if they're fairly quick. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do now is just share my screen. Oh, the other thing is I've got my video turned on at the moment, but I'm going to turn that off just to save bandwidth. You've seen my face, so you don't need to see it all the time. Keep the microphone on and keep the video off. And so I'll just share a screen now that has my slides on them. It'll just take me a little while. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see now the screen. And oops, just pick the right application, and hopefully you can see me moving my mouse or my cursor around. And unfortunately, when I show the screen, I can't see your questions, so I have to go back and forth a bit sometimes. Okay, so just back to that. Okay, so lots of hands up, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, so put your hands down now so that we can put them up again later if we need it. So everyone's figured that out. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. Okay, so that's just the title slide. First, I'll just start with who am I? I'm a retired academic. I used to be a senior lecturer at QUT, but I'm now living at Cairns. I've got a background in applied mathematics, but over the last few years, I've become interested in statistics and data science. I also tutored this subject. It was the very first subject offered in the Masters of Data Science, and I tutored it the first time and also one other time. So this is my third go at this subject. So hopefully I've learned a bit since then. Anyway, that's a little bit about me. The subject itself, it's an introductory stats subject. Stats is obviously a key part of analysing data. It's not the only part, but a lot of statistical concepts are involved in data science. A lot of data science is about big data, which means really large, massive sets of data. But that's not what we're going to do in this subject. We'll be looking at relatively small sets of data. And partly this is to see how powerful statistical techniques can be sometimes, and how much you can actually deduce from a small data set. So this will provide a foundation for you later on when you are dealing with larger data sets in other subjects. And in terms of the students doing the subject, what I've found in experience is that some students have done a bit of stats before, maybe know a bit of this content, but they haven't done R. Some people have done, or some people have done programming, not necessarily R, but programming, but never done any stats. Some people have done neither, and that's a bit tougher for them, but hopefully there's something in it for everybody to learn. Anyway, my main focus today is on the assessment, so let me just overview this first. So there's 5 assessment items, so pretty much one every week. I've only included the assessable ones, but there's another one which is a formative assessment one, which I'll mention at the end. So the first one's a quiz. That's 1 hour. That's due at the end of next week, but it's only really week 1 content only. So week 1 is just some really basic stats concepts, and week 2 is an introduction to R programming. But if you haven't already got R set up ready to run, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to get it installed this week rather than wait till next week. I'll put up on the discussion forum a guideline of how to install R, so anyone who hasn't used it before can hopefully install it fairly easily. Right, the second assignment is called experimental design. It's a 1-page maximum. What it involves is basically designing either an experimental or observational study. This assessment's tied strongly to the capstone report, which is the final assessment for the course. But just so you know that if you choose a certain research question and a certain design and data for your experimental design, and then you decide you want to change it later, you're perfectly welcome to do that. You're not stuck with it. It is simply a chance to give you a bit of feedback on how to set up an experimental design. The third assessment is a short response assignment. So what that means is a bunch of things where we give you some data and ask you to do some statistical tests on that data. And that's, I forget when that is exactly. Experimental design's due end of week 3. The short response, I think, is due end of week 5. Then there's a multiple choice quiz, 1 hour on all 6 weeks content. And with that multiple choice quiz, I think what we did last year, and I think it'll be the same this year, you actually get 2 chances to do the quiz, and we'll take your best mark, so you get 2 attempts at it. And then finally is the capstone report, which is quite long. And so my advice to you is start thinking about it early and work on it as you go along. Don't leave it to the last minute. Although it's only 4 pages, one of the challenges is to fit all that you've done into 4 pages. So we're kind of assessing you on how to write concisely and clearly. And that's one of the reasons for the 4-page maximum. Right, so let me move on. So the first quiz, 1 hour in length, it's 15 questions. They're multiple choice, 1 correct answer. Some questions require some simple calculations, such as finding the mean, median, standard deviations. You can use any tool to do that you like. You can use a calculator, you can use R, and you can use Excel or anything you like. Because it's only multiple choice, we don't know what you use anyway. Some people like to wait till they've done a bit of R and do the quiz in the 2nd week, but there's nothing stopping you from doing it early. There's only 1 attempt at the quiz, however. You don't get multiple attempts. Other questions involve interpreting QQ plots and box plots and things like that. Right, 1 more slide, and then I can take some questions. The experimental design assignment and the capstone. So the idea is to design experiment or observational study for your capstone. But as I said, if you change your mind about that, you can. You're not obliged to use what you put in for the experimental design assignment in the capstone. I'll say a lot more about this one next week. One bit of advice I want to give you is stick to the page limit. We don't mark anything that goes over the limit. So if you write 2 pages, you'll only get 1 page marked. That may be tough, but it's also preparing you for the real world. As an academic, if you put in a research grant and you go 1 word over the page limit, your whole grant is thrown out. So we're actually a lot more generous than that. So the reason I'm saying that is that always last year, maybe 2 or 3 people didn't follow that. So I'm going to be emphasising it a lot because I don't want people to lose marks because they haven't stuck to the page limit. Read the marking rubric carefully. So when you download the assignment, don't just go on what's sitting there on Learn Ultra. Actually download it, and because there's a marking rubric attached to it, and read that and structure your 1 page according to that marking rubric. That's the best way to be successful. And the other advice is read and reread and try and understand the week 1 notes on particularly the section on experimental design. Last year, people found this was probably the worst done assignment of them all. It is hard. I would say that the course as a whole, the subject as a whole, not the course, but the subject as a whole is the content isn't that hard, but doing the capstone is fairly hard for people. So that's probably the capstone and the experimental design parts of the course are what makes it a master's course rather than an undergraduate course. Anyway, so that's pretty much all the slides. Does anybody have any questions? Or maybe I better see if there's any questions here already. Okay, so some of them. I'll just go up a bit. Okay, so where are we up to? Probably the first question's from Michael. I was wondering if there are any mistakes in the topic questions. As far as I know, there are no mistakes. We've managed to fix pretty much everything. I would suggest if you think there's a mistake, put it onto the discussion forum and people will, even other students will say, yeah, I'm getting the same answer or I'm not getting the same answer, and that's the best way to alert us. But as far as I know, there isn't any, but I can't 100% guarantee that. One thing I'll warn you about, when you're just doing the exercises, what you call the topic questions, when you're doing that, the Learn Ultra tool that checks your answer, if it's not multiple choice, if it's like putting in a number, it's pretty crude. So for instance, you might calculate that the answer is a fraction 1/3, but you put in 0.33, it'll tell you you're wrong, but just ignore that. Just check the answer, okay? Don't worry if the system says you're wrong when you're not wrong. That's not important. The question is whether you're getting the same answer as when you actually check the answer. Hope that makes sense. Okay, for experimental design, where can we get data? I can't answer that. That's up to you. I'll make a few suggestions next week, but you know, that's what you have to do. I'm meeting with Yvette tomorrow, so I just want to clarify a few things about what you can and can't do, and what data you can and can't use. So I'll probably post that on the discussion board and we'll discuss it next week as well. Okay, but we're not going to tell you where to get the data from because that's doing the assignment for you. Isabella, I don't know if you're still on, but yeah, you said connection's not good. I keep dropping out. Yeah, that's a technical issue that I can't help you with. They say on Learn Ultra that they advise using a internet connection with about 20 megabits per second, I think. So anyway, yeah, maybe Isabella, ask about that on the discussion forum and try and help sort you out, or maybe you've got to do something else. Could be at my end, but I've got 20 megabits per second, but I'm actually thinking I might up that next week so that I don't run into any problems. But yeah, but if it was my end, then everybody would be seeing the dropout, not just one or two. Okay, Powell, similar question. I can't answer that yet, but I'll focus on that next week about how to choose the experiment. Try and give you some guidelines. Okay, what else have we got? Hang on, I've just lost a lot more questions that come in. So, right, I think the next one's from Lisa. With the quiz in week 1, how much depth do we need to do to interpret the graphs? Okay, to answer the question, you just need multiple choice, but yeah, you pretty much have to understand what each graph's doing. I'd say on the whole, the exercise, the questions in the actual notes should prepare you for that. Isabella, I can't even get over the topic 1 quiz. What does that mean? Oh, sorry, I don't understand that question. Might have to come back to that one. Otherwise, I've got to scroll down. Oh, okay, that was about, yeah. Okay. So I didn't understand Isabella's question on I can't even get over the topic 1 quiz. Yeah, just don't understand what you're asking there. Do you want to use the microphone and explain what that means, or we'll come back to it?
Oh, sure. Glenn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi. My question was, I was reading the topic 1 and then I was trying the quiz, but the quiz questions were actually asking definitions of statistical terms that were not in the topic. Like,
really? I don't believe that's correct.
Yes, so I actually had to Google up.
Well, that's fine. You can use Google. Yeah, maybe that was the point. I didn't think it was the point.
Okay.
But that's perfectly you use whatever tools are available. Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was a mistake in.
But it's not cheating or anything like that, because it's just
Okay,
yeah,
I was just worried that a real quiz would have similar issue.
Well, both quizzes you can have Google and notes available and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're all open book quizzes. That maybe that's why some things may be a bit harder, but they're not. Yeah, there's no way that we can enforce them to be closed books. So without putting you into an exam room. And given that we can't enforce it, then it's not really fair that some students could do it without us knowing. So it's basically open book. Yeah, so you can Google, you can use your notes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was my only issue with topic 1.
Okay, David, what specifically makes the capstone harder than undergraduate assessments? Okay, depends on what undergraduate degree you did, but mostly in first year or introductory stats courses, they don't usually ask people to do something like a capstone. They might ask, it's possible in some subjects, but not, it's kind of got a bit more kind of research emphasis in that you've got to, find your data. It's not just given to you. So find your data, and that's harder than you think, because you've got to understand about sampling. What's a valid sample? What's an invalid sample? What you can deduce, what conclusions are valid and what's not valid, and what statistical test to select. That's probably what makes it harder. Okay, Lisa, In regards to the assignment, can we use a survey? As you can. I'm going to post some stuff, some extra notes. Surveys, you've got to be very careful with surveys because particularly in the way that you sample people. There's all sorts of biases that come into surveys that you need to be aware of. A little bit that's discussed in the notes, but I think I'm actually preparing a few extra pages that I'm going to put on the discussion forum that talks about that. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You certainly can, but you have to be aware of some of the issues. That's all. The other thing that's important with a survey is, it depends on how you do a survey, is giving yourself enough time to collect the data. So, you know, if it's sort of like going to a supermarket and asking people questions or something like that, that can be done in one lot. But if it's sort of like setting up a web survey, you know, you got to give yourself time to get your data and to be able to look at it and process it. So anyway, hopefully I'll say a lot more about that next week. It's I need to really think about that experimental design and have a really organised way of explaining things. David, David, question. Do we get a framework for the experimental design? The framework is basically the marking rubric. So the marking rubric's in the PDF file that you download. So that's the framework. Okay, Isabella, I think, still talking about that quiz. Nicholas, how big should the data be? There's no limitation on the data size. You don't have to use big data. That's not the point of this subject. How many you should use? I think that's a question that you need to figure out yourself a bit, because there's no single answer to that. Natalie, is there a time limit for the quiz? Yes, 1 hour. Unfortunately, there is a time limit. Otherwise, too easy. Michael, the only thing I would say to add in would be that there would be decimal places to round to for the questions. Michael, are you talking about the quiz or still about just the exercises? Yeah, just the exercises. Yeah, that's true. That's not important, decimal points. Yeah, you can tell from looking at the answer whether you got it right or not. Don't, as I said, ignore what Learn Ultra. If Learn Ultra says incorrect, ignore that. Just look at the answer and compare. Okay. I asked KeyPath, the people who made the web, to remove all cases of it judging whether you're right or wrong, but they may have left a few. So yeah. So rounding off is not. Yeah, it can't tell. It's just not good at picking up rounding off errors. So just ignore that. Okay, Nessia, last time I touched on statistics was 20 years ago. I'm lost on the experimental design assignment. I'm hoping that there will be more guidance on how to do the assignment or some example. Would that be the case? I'm not sure about an example. I don't think you'll be given an example. I think, yeah, I'll have to talk to Yvette about that. There are some examples on, if you actually have downloaded the PDF, there are 3 examples in the PDF of experimental designs that people have made mistakes on. So that's kind of handy, and also an explanation of what was wrong. So there are 3 examples there. Emma was just clarifying. Okay, I think Isabella's referring to some of the exercise, asking us to define continuous or nominal. I couldn't find notes about those, so I had to Google those. I thought it was in the notes. I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, I thought it was mentioned there somewhere. If you've got the PDF copies of the notes, you can always just do a quick search in PDF on the words ordinal and nominal and just see where it comes up with? Okay, then Kerry's just agreeing with Emma. Michael still commenting on, yeah, expectations of prior knowledge. Nessie asked, where can I download the PDF? Have a look in the discussion forum, it's there. I should say at this point, it's important that you read all of the discussion forum, not just questions that you post. So it is your responsibility to read everything. So make sure that you do, because you may miss some important things. Vivian, where do we download R from? Okay, I'm going to put something on. I'll probably put it on tomorrow morning, but I'll put some instructions about where to download R from. So basically some links to click on and what you've got to do. It's fairly straightforward, but I'll put it in tomorrow. So that was Roxley. Vivian, just wondering, I've not done a subject with a quiz that has a time limit. By the sounds of it, some people have seen the questions already. I would have thought once you open the quiz, you need to start it there, and then yes, that's absolutely correct. If you open the quiz to have a look at the questions and you'll get, and then close it, you'll get 0. You were probably too hasty if you did that. Once you open the quiz, you've got 1 hour to finish it. Stuart comment, Anaconda is a good package if you want Python, IDE and Jupyter Notebook bundles in. Yeah. In this subject, we'll be focusing on R, not Python, but Python's an important language used in data science, and yeah, I use Anaconda as well. So that's kind of handy. Okay, yeah, so I'm not sure which ones I missed. Maybe I should stop partway through my talking because I had a huge number. Yeah, okay. I'll get back to that. Stuart also said Anaconda has RStudio now. Okay. But Anaconda loads a whole lot of other stuff as well. So my instructions will just be to load how to install R and RStudio. But if you want to do it another way, that's perfectly fine also. So Lisa said, I missed a couple of questions. I'm happy, you might have to retype those. It might be hard for me to find them if you don't mind. Still happy to do that. Okay, Lisa said, talking about the experimental design, if we acknowledge possible biases in our sampling choices, will this still result in a reduction of marks? The best way to handle that is just to define your population carefully. In other words, don't try and make an inference about all of Australia when you've just collected data from Melbourne. You just make the inference about Melbourne. So Melbourne's your population, not all of Australia. So that's the best way. That was a question by Edward. Given that it's hard to do a simple random sample, if you can't do a simple random sample, but you acknowledge what the problems are and you address your conclusions based on that, then you wouldn't lose marks. But you've got to really show that you're aware of where your deficiencies are in your sampling. Right. Edward said, I missed the first few minutes, so I'm not sure if you've addressed this, but if we use data that has been collected by other people, such as census at school, okay, that's something I'm going to have to get back to you on. I want to clarify that with Yvette. There's a little statement in the assignment that says something about you must have collected the data yourself. So I just want to get a clarification. So I can't answer that question at the moment, but I will answer it certainly by next week. So try and, if you're on next week, try and ask. And if not, ask it in the discussion forum. But please wait until after tomorrow because I'm meeting with Yvette tomorrow. I think the quiz Isabella is talking about, is it the practices quiz at the end of the topic one, not the accessible quiz? That could have been. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it was. I wouldn't have, unless you're extremely confident, I wouldn't have been doing the week one accessible quiz at this point here until I'd finished doing everything else. Okay, Sue asked a question, and good to see you again, Sue. If we use the same idea for experimental design and capstone, is it okay if there's similarity or repetition of these as two assessments? Okay, perfectly fine. In fact, majority of students will do the same, but we're saying that if you wish to change your mind, it's also okay to do that. But the general aim is that the experimental design will just slot straight into the capstone. You can copy and paste it pretty much if you've done it perfectly. Okay, yeah, this sign says all relevant to your place of work, yeah. Yeah, so again, I'm going to have to get clarification on that about what you can and can't do, and I'm trying to make that fairly clear to you. I just can't at the moment until I've talked to Yvette about it. I know in the past we've been a bit lax about it, and but we're going to try and be a bit clearer this year. Technical question. If these lectures are recorded, where can I access those recordings? Have a look on the discussion forum. I've given where I've said how to use Collaborate. I've also put a little file about how to download or view a recording. So lots of stuff is on the discussion forum. It's just a matter of finding it. If you can't find it, then ask a question and someone else will point out exactly where it is. We can give a reference saying what time the discussion was started, and you can easily scroll down and find it that way. Similarly, are we able to use existing data that we collect? You certainly are, and actually encourage that. One of the issues, let me think what I was going to say. One of the issues about using data from other sources, like just finding data on the web, that has occurred in previous ones, is that people have no idea how that data has been collected. And so they don't know if it's a proper random sample or whether it's a dodgy sample. And so they're kind of then doing stats on it, and we don't know if those stats are valid or not. So that's the sort of concern we have about just getting data off the web. But I'm not saying you can't, it just needs to be clarified. Michelle asked, do you need ethics clearances? Not officially, but yeah, I mean, it's just an assignment, it's not a publication, so assuming you're not going to do something completely unethical and that you don't need to get an official approval. We don't have time for that, but I would expect you would kind of pay attention to ethics. In other words, don't publish something with somebody's name if you've collected it off them. You can, but you don't have to get an official ethics clearance. How long do we wait for feedback on the assignment? Okay, the way to answer is as soon as it's marked, we'll let you know. How long does it take to mark? The experimental design last year took about 3 or so days, but we seem to have more students this time, so it may take a bit longer, but you should get it back within a week. We try to give good feedback, and so they do the experimental design, even though it's only 1 page, takes a bit to mark and to give feedback on. I'll try and also give a few tips to help you make that clearer, because if your experimental design is not very clear, then it's hard for us to judge whether it's going to work or not. Do all the messages we type here get recorded on the discussion recording? The answer is, I can't quite remember because it's 6 months since I've done the course again, but I think the answer is yes. Certainly that's one of the reasons I'm reading them out, just in case. I think if you view it within Learn Ultra, you can see it. But if you download the video, you don't see the messages. But that's why I try and read them. The term capstone, are you able to define it and why it seems to be used a lot, especially in reference to assignment at the end of the subject? A capstone, basically it's an assignment that covers the whole subject and kind of brings everything together that you've learned. Why it's called a capstone, I don't know. A cap, I guess, being that it covers everything. And yeah, it's often considered to be good practice to have something like that. An exam, in a sense, an exam is a capstone assessment, but we can't really do a good, an exam properly. We can only do multiple choice for a quiz, which is only worth 20%. So a capstone's a bit more substantial. It's also meant to be kind of like not just an exam, but an assessment that sort of showed you how you're going to apply the knowledge in a practical sense. Michelle, yeah, just respond to what I said. Yes, they do get recorded, but I'm fairly sure that if you download the recording, you don't see them. This is referring to the comments or the questions that people have been posting. Okay. Okay, Lisa, are we able to email, call you? You won't be able to call me. I don't give out my phone number. Email me. You have got my email though. That's in the subject guide. To check the validity of the source. No, I don't. I'm not interested in checking the validity of a data source. You can do that. And I'm not doing your assignment for you in saying that, this is a good data source, this is a bad data source. This is up to you to kind of decide. That's what makes it hard. So yeah, we don't do that. We don't look at drafts of assignments and things like that. That's basically, yeah, that's for high school students. Yeah, you can ask. What you can do is you can ask general questions, and they should be posted to the discussion board. You may discuss your data and your questions with other students, but I'm not allowed to kind of tell you, yes, yours is on the right track, because it's not fair to do that for one person, and it's just not practical to do it for 200 students. So yeah, so that's probably the answer to that question, Lisa. Okay, Michael, I have a lot of data I've kept on paper. Exercise data might take quite a while to put that to CSV, though. Any opinion on that? Do you need to use all of the data, or could you just use a random sample of it? Perhaps that's enough exercise data. I wouldn't be wasting a huge amount of time just entering data. Yeah, I would consider doing a random sample of that data. Michelle said, might be worth posting what ethics are so students, new students know JCU's position on the human ethics. I don't even know what JCU's position on human ethics is. If anybody knows it, please post it on the discussion forum. Capstone definition, a stone at the top of a wall or building, someone's greatest achievement or the greatest part of something. Oh, that's interesting. That's somebody's obviously Googled it. Yeah. Okay, still more questions coming in. I thought this would be really quick, but people have lots of questions, so that's good. Okay, Roxy asked, do we come to all these sessions each week or just one a week? That's up to you. Can be also none a week. yeah, maybe you just want to watch a video, watch a recording rather. Not everybody can make it. Obviously, with the number of students we have, this is only a small subset of all the students enrolled in the course. I believe there's almost 200 students enrolled. Each one's different. So this one's on assessment. But the other two are going to be on the weekly content. Mostafas will probably be emphasising a bit more of the statistical concepts and theory, and Zolani's will probably be more applying that theory using R, so a bit more demonstrating R. Okay, oops. Just to clarify, each assessment rubric is in the assessment PDF and not in the subject outline. That's correct. So yeah, the assessment rubric's not given in the subject outline, it's given in the PDF file for the assignment. So you must download the PDF file. So when you go to the assignment, you'll see that the assignment's kind of written out, but it's missing detail like the rubric. So you must download that PDF. And just in case people are new, to download the assignment PDF, it's like all the downloads. You go to the little circle with the 3 dots and click on that. That's usually to the right of it, where the PDF is. And if you click on that, it will give you the option to download. Roxy, yeah, just commenting. Evenings are hard, so I probably do more recordings than live chats. Yeah, that's fine. Everybody's, yeah, it's good to be able to get on and discuss things, but you know, not everybody can actually make it. And we got students. Last year there was one in New Zealand. Often have students in Perth that sometimes the times just don't suit. So yeah, you just do what you can. I'd say the course is mainly around the actual notes, reading the notes. That's kind of, and these sessions just supplement these. I guess if we're doing random sampling on our data can be too small, can't it? If your data is too small, then you might have too much variability in the data that you chose, and maybe the statistics won't be as strong. But depending on what your regional population is, then, you know, if your regional population is really small, then your random sample will be even smaller. But if your regional population is large, you can choose your random sample to be whatever size you want. So that was a question from Sue. Tom, for those asking how to install R, there's a detailed chapter under readings. Yeah. Using R for introductory statistics, that's true. That is Windows only. I'm going to put a guide that shows you how to install it if you use a Mac as well. So you can use my guide. I've got screenshots and things, or you can use that one. If you have problems installing it, we'll put something on the discussion forum and someone will help you out. Okay, while there's still questions, I'll answer them. Then if anybody wants to see a quick demo of R&R Studio, if they've never seen it before, I'll just show you what it looks like. Yeah, Lisa said, is there a way to set up the discussion forum so new comments come up first rather than scrolling down through them all? Yeah, I wish, but I doubt it. I don't really, yeah, I don't have any control over that. And as far as I know, you can't do that. But I'll have a look at the options, but I don't think you can. Natalie, we are not using Remark for any assessment. That's correct, except for the fact that the experimental design, you'll get feedback for the other one, but we don't do remarks. This is a course for adults, not for high school kids. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Natalie. What's remark through Blackboard? I don't know what that is actually, which probably means that we're not using it. Yeah, can you explain, Natalie, what remark is? Okay, undergraduate quizzes. Yeah, I don't think we're using it. I've never heard of it before. Michael's comment is, if there's a search function, that would be good. What are you referring to? Search function? Oh, you mean for comments? Okay. Yep. I've never tried to do that. We'll see what happens. Oh yeah. Could be handy. Yeah. Maybe I've learned something today. Thanks for that. Okay, maybe this will probably need to be about the last comment, and then I'll do R. Emma's just typing something now. Well, let me just go to the quick R demo, and then yeah, then if there's any of these comments, I'll answer at the end. I'm not going to take too long on it. However, people who already know R might want to leave, and it's really just for people who've never seen it before. Okay, so you should now see the RStudio program on the screen. There's two parts to using R. There's the program called R, and then there's RStudio, which is the interface that we use. And what you're seeing here is RStudio, and that's pretty much everything we do stuff through. When you install it, you'll find there's a bit of extra stuff. These are all the files I've been working on. I'll just close them so it's a bit untidy. Okay, right. So what you get is 4 windows. This is called the edit window. This is sort of your environment. Just tells you about certain variables, and this is the command window, and this is sort of over here is a bunch of things, but it's where your plots will occur. You can use R like a calculator and just type in R commands, and I'll just show you a couple of samples of that. Just go back to a question. Yep, okay, Michael's question, good question. When I start RStudio, does that automatically start R on its own? Yeah, it does. It automatically, in fact, you can almost get, I could show you, but if you read kind of like what occurs on there, you can see it actually starting R. So it just automatically starts it. So when you do the installation, you have to install R first, and then you install RStudio second. So yeah, okay. So yeah, you don't have to worry. It automatically starts R. Yep. Okay. Right. So what else? Let's go back to it. So down in this bottom window, you can type R commands such as this is basically using R like a calculator. So I can say X is assigned. Here I can just give it a list of numbers: 1, 2, 4, 5, 7. And then I can say, what's the mean of R, mean of X? And it calculates the mean of that number. What's the standard deviation of X? Calculates the standard deviation. So that's the easy way to use it. David has his hand up. Or any? No question? Okay. On the other hand, when you start to get some more complex commands, you can make it like a little program. So I can go X, I can put all that into a program. And then I can basically I can either run specific commands using the run button, or I can just simply execute the whole program in one go. And then you'll see the outputs down here, but when you're running it as a program, you have to sometimes you have to tell it to print the answer, print the mean of X. And the other thing you can do is make another variable, and I can plot X against Y, hit the source button, and helps if I spell it properly. And that produces a plot of those points. Or if I want to give it something extra, plot type and make it a line plot. So that's basically the idea of how it works. I don't want to get into teaching you R at the moment, just wanted to sort of show you some things. You'll see over here in our environment, the value of X. It said it was a number ranging from 1 to 6, and they're the values, and here's the one for Y. So the idea is you can make sort of sets of data. You don't have to type everything in. You'll learn how to read it in from an Excel file or a comma separated values file or a text file. And if you've got big data sets, you learn how to do that next week. But then you can do things with the data. You can manipulate things. You can plot them. You can do various statistical tests and lots of things. So it's very powerful. Anyway, that's probably enough for tonight. Yeah, so Lisa's question, for large data sets, do we import them? Absolutely, you don't have to type everything in. That was just for purposes of demonstration, but I didn't want to do that this time. Even for medium data sets, you don't type them all out. Okay, long term, what's the most complex ideas / code in R should we be looking at learning? Depends on what you're going to do, but I say what you learn in this course and the foundations for data science will equip you with a fair bit of R. Once you get that kind of feeling for R, you can always just figure stuff out yourself. New statistical technique comes up. You can, just read the help and figure out how to use it. But you got to have that. You need a course. I think a course helps to get that starting point. The starting point is easy if you already know programming, like Python. It's very, very easy if you know Python already to learn R. If you've never done programming before, it's a little bit of a hurdle, but hopefully we provide you with enough resources to learn it. Hope that answers your question. It was a bit of a vague answer, but it was a bit of a vague question, I guess. How much do you need to know? Is there a more advanced R course later in the master's program? I don't think so. The master's program really tries to expose you to lots of different software environments. So next course, if you haven't already done it, is called Foundations of Data Science. That does more advanced R. Then you learn SQL for manipulating databases. You also learn SAS, which is another stats package. You learn Python as one language as well, as it comes up, and I think that's about it. There's probably other more advanced things you use in the later year courses, I think. I'm not sure though. Yeah, probably more like some of the tools for big data. Yeah, so Michael, if you've already done some programming, that's a head start. But if you haven't, that's okay too. It's certainly possible to pick up what you need for this course. We don't really use it. We don't use anything very sophisticated in this course. Yeah, so Michael, it's a 4 subject, so yeah, you should be pretty right. In some ways, the R that we're doing is probably less sophisticated than what was done in Foundations for Data Science. So ideally, from the point of programming, it's better to do this course first, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm not a big fan of SAS. That's just my personal view. I'm not a big fan of any programming environment you've got to pay money for. So I'm kind of biased there. So take that into account. In the past, SAS was really good at doing big data sets, and R wasn't. R could only handle what you could fit into memory. But I believe that's not the case anymore. Python's a lovely language. It's very elegant, but it was never written for stats. It was written as a computing science language. Stats, R was written by statisticians for statisticians. So the advantage in R is that if there's some newfangled technique that's just come out, then it's more likely someone will have programmed it in R than Python. But on the other hand, if what you're having to do is interacting with the operating system or interacting with web pages and making a graphical user interface, Python's certainly better than R for that. And possibly if you're writing a library. I actually like the new language Julia. I'm quite keen on that, but whether it will succeed or not, who knows? It's too new. But yeah, everybody has their preferences, and I think the point of view of this course is really to expose you to as many things as possible, at the expense of maybe not becoming expert in it. But you become expert in a language through solving problems more than through doing courses. That's what I found. Yeah. Tableau is another software environment that I'm not particularly keen on myself, but a lot of people swear by it. I heard one student who got themselves a job because they'd studied Tableau. So, you know, it does help people in picking up work. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's probably about time to go. So it's been nice chatting to everybody. And some I'll see and some I won't. But, yeah. Hopefully next week I'll have something much better to give you about the experimental design assignment. I just need a bit more time to think about that. And in the meantime, ask lots of questions on the discussion forum. There hasn't been that many at the moment. And yeah, if you get a chance, have a listen to Mustafa or Zalani's session if you want to. But if you find that the theory's okay, people have limited time, and I know you have to optimize how you spend it. Okay, so yeah, all right. So lots of people still on, but yeah, I think it's time for me to go. So yeah, see some of you guys next week or on the discussion forums.